Hello everyone, this is Yours Trivia, and today we're continuing the founding of Jin Let's Talk Lore series with episode 4, titled A New Wu Emperor. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode, and be sure to stay tuned until the end of this episode for a brand new trivia question. Now, last time we covered the early reforms implemented by the Jin dynasty, and today we are going to shift our attention back to military matters, as despite the conquest of Shuhan and the fall of Wei, the final kingdom of Wu was still standing, as Jin still needed to overcome this final obstacle on its path to reunification. At the time of the founding of Jin in 265, the kingdom of Wu was also going through a transfer of power, as the third emperor of Wu in Sun Hao would have died of illness in 264 at the age of just 30 years old. With all of Sun Hao's sons too young to rule independently, the Wu prime minister Pu Yangxing and general of the left Zhang Bu decided to break from tradition, as instead of allowing Sun Hao's son to inherit the throne, they pushed the Wu imperial court to pick the 23-year-old Sun Hao, who was a nephew to the late emperor, to become Wu's fourth emperor. In terms of lineage, Sun Hao did have a good claim to the throne, as he was the eldest son of Sun He, who was Sun Quan's third son and the previous crown prince. Sun He will lose his position as the crown prince in the political battle with his younger brother, Sun Ba, before eventually being killed in exile by the Wu regent Sun Jun. But his sons would survive, as Sun Hao now returns to power as Wu's fourth emperor in 264. As the kingdom of Shuhan was just conquered and momentum was on the Wei side, the initial stance of Sun Hao's reign was to try to become a vassal to the Wei court, as envoys with tributes were sent to Sima Zhao in 264. While negotiations went well, the death of Sima Zhao, the forced abdication of Wei, and the founding of Jin made Sun Hao believe that Jin would be weak in its initial period of transition. So the vassal negotiation was halted unilaterally by Sun Hao in 266. While Sun Hao considered launching an offensive military campaign against the new state of Jin, his generals collectively opposed such a reckless plan based entirely on the assumption that Jin would be weaker during this transition period. Without support from his generals, Sun Hao turned his attention elsewhere in 267, as he would propose the construction of a brand new palace for himself. And in an effort to rush the completion of the massive palace complex in just a span of 1 year, Sun Hao would exhaust the Wu imperial coffers, as the project ended up costing roughly 1 trillion. The labor situation got so bad that Sun Hao even had imperial court officials serve as lumber mill supervisors in order to have his palace finished on time by December of 267. Now in his new palace, Sun Hao would finally push for the offensive campaign in 268, as he will lay out plans for a massive multi-front attack in September of 268. In his plan, Sun Hao himself would lead a reserve force and take a forward position at Dongguan. In the Jin province, General Shi Ji was ordered to attack Jiangxia, while Prime Minister Wan Yu was ordered to attack Xiangyang. In the Yang province, Generals Ding Feng and Zhuge Jing were ordered to attack the area around Hefei. And lastly, Generals Xiu Ze and Gu Rong were sent to help the previous prefect of the Jiao province in Liu Jun, in order to try to reclaim this recently lost province from Jin control. Ignoring the Jing and Jiao provinces for a second, the most interesting part of this Wu attack would come from the Hefei front, as General Ding Feng came up with a plot to weaken the Jin side. As part of Ding Feng's plot, a letter from Ding Feng depicting a potential collaboration with Wu was sent to the Jin Da Sima, or Supreme Military Commander, Shi Bao, who had been in charge of the Huainan defense ever since the final Huainan rebellion by Zhuge Dan. The purpose of the letter was to exploit a personality clash between General Shi Bao and his army inspector Wang Chen, as Ding Feng wanted Wang Chen to use his army inspector position and frame Shi Bao for treason using the collaboration letter from Ding Feng. Now, to understand why the two Jin generals would have such an exploitable personality clash, we have to look back into Shi Bao's past, as Shi Bao was one of the few lower class founding members of the Jin dynasty and a true rags to riches story. Born in Nanpi County of the Bohai Commandery in the north, Shi Bao's family were simple farmers. Ever the smart kid, Shi Bao eventually earned himself a minor supervisor position in the local Tuntian farm network. While many local officials would make note of Shi Bao's intelligence, Shi Bao simply never got the chance to shine, as he would eventually choose to leave home to seek a better life in bigger cities. Being in the north, Shi Bao's first step was naturally the city of Ye, but with no connections, Shi Bao would end up being forced to work a job as a miner, mining ores and selling them in the market to make a living. Despite working in manual labor, Shi Bao constantly tried to network with officials, as his job allowed him access with the army, and he would end up getting noticed by Zhao Yuanru, who was the mayor of Ye and a minor imperial court official in Xuyun. But neither of these connections paid off for Shi Bao, as he would end up moving once again to Chang'an in the year 233, where he continued to work as a miner to pay the bills and to have a connection with the army. Fortunately, the connection he found himself this time would finally pay off, as he got noticed by the then Wei Western Army commander, Sima Yi, who had just relocated to Chang'an to deal with the recurring northern expeditions led by Zhuge Liang. Sima Yi would first promote Shi Bao to the Department of State Affairs as a minor official for a period of time to verify his abilities, before moving him to the Central Guard Army to work under his son, Sima Shi. Sima Shi adored Shi Bao's talent to the point of allowing Shi Bao to break some army rules, as Shi Bao was quite lewd when it came to women. And this reputation eventually found its way to Sima Yi's ears, as Sima Yi would reprimand his son for tolerating Shi Bao's behaviors. Undeterred, Sima Shi simply responded that Shi Bao's talents were enough to overlook his character, as he would much rather have a capable but lewd officer than a high character officer that was incapable. Shi Bao would go on to prove Sima Shi correct, as he would work his way from being the administrators of Donglai and Langya to eventually being the prefect of the Xu province. During the disaster at Dongxing, when the Wei troops under Sima Zhao routed in a disorganized manner, leading to massive casualties, only Shi Bao's unit were able to maintain formation and retreat safely from the battlefield. Afterward, Sima Zhao lamented that he wished he had handed over the entire commands to Shi Bao earlier, and soon enough, Sima Shi would promote Shi Bao to the position of Fenwu Jiangjun and put him in charge of the Wei Eastern armies in the Qing province. Shi Bao would also shine during the final rebellion of Huainan, where he and General Zhou Tai prevented the Wu army under General Zhu Yi from reaching Shouchun and reinforcing the city. Politically, as someone who owes his whole career to being discovered by Sima Yi, Shi Bao, much like Deng Ai, who has a similar background as a farmer, was a staunch Sima clan loyalist. And for this reason, the Sima clan also continued to promote him, as he would go from Fenwu Jiangjun to general who stabilizes the east, or Zhendong Jiangjun, and a Marquis title on top of that, as he would become the Marquis of Dongguang in 258. Then in the final years of Sima Zhao's life, as Sima Zhao was preparing the Sima clan for usurpation, Shi Bao was promoted to Grand General who conquers the east, or Zhengdong Da Jiangjun, before being promoted again to Piaoqi Jiangjun, or General of the Cavalry. And when Sima Yan founded the Jin dynasty, Shi Bao would reach the peak of military rank, as he would become Da Sima, or the supreme military commander. And for a non-imperial clan member, Shi Bao would also get the highest tier of nobility title possible, as he would be made into the Duke of Leling Commandery, or Leling Jungong. So basically, all the honor in the world was bestowed on him, and this made some gentry clan officials, such as Army Inspector Wang Chen, quite jealous and unhappy, as they saw Shi Bao as lower class and forever the farmer and miner, despite his obvious talent to rise to his current position. And thus, when Wang Chen got a hold of the obvious letter intending to frame Shi Bao, he jumped at the opportunity and reported Shi Bao to the imperial court for treason and collaborating with the enemy. Now, as you might have guessed, given how much the Sima clan have awarded Shi Bao throughout his career, Shi Bao obviously had their trust. So initially, Emperor Sima Yan did not believe that Shi Bao would ever betray him, but given the report, Sima Yan still attempted to verify this claim, as he first sent agents to investigate the situation in Huainan, while also issuing a summon of Shi Bao's son, Shi Qiao, who at the time was serving as an imperial attendant. Now, for whatever reason, unrecorded in history, Shi Qiao failed to answer the summon and was unaccounted for multiple days, which set off alarm bells all over Sima Yan's head. And this completely shifted Sima Yan's perspective on the matter. So when reports came back that Shi Bao was aggressively preparing defensive positions throughout the Huainan region, Sima Yan no longer believed that Shi Bao was simply preparing to defend Huainan from the imminent Wu attack, but now rather suspecting Shi Bao was preparing to defect and that these defensive positions would be used against Jin. And when reports from General Hu Lie in the Jin province confirmed of a separate offensive Wu attack, Sima Yan talked himself into believing that Wu was investing more resources in the Jin province because they already knew that Shi Bao was going to defect and that they did not need to invest more to attack the Yang province. And even though officials like Yang Hu tried to talk some sense into Sima Yan that Shi Bao would never betray them, Sima Yan was not going to take any chances, as he would end up ordering Grand Commandant Sima Wang to push the Jin Central Army towards Shouchun from Luoyang, while Prince of Langya, Sima Zhou, was ordered to take his garrison south from Xiapi to join in on the attack in anticipation of Shi Bao's rebellion. Now, to find out what will actually happen to Shi Bao and the result of the entire Wu offense across all three fronts, come back next time as we'll continue our series with episode 5, titled The Shi Bao Incident. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!